It was going to be a little messy, but it's just something we felt important that had to be done, that should be done.
Hold on tight, everyone. We're diving into one of the most scandalous and controversial stories unfolding in a small Illinois town today. That's right. We're talking about the drama in Dalton, where the so-called super mayor, Tiffany Henyard, is at the center of a whirlwind of allegations and controversies that threaten to bring down her entire empire. Once seen as a trailblazer by her supporters, Henyard's tenure now stands on the brink of ruin, as financial scandals, federal investigations, and mounting allegations of misconduct swirl around her leadership. It all started with claims of lavish spending that shocked taxpayers. Henyard allegedly used public funds like a personal bank account, splurging on first-class airfare, luxury hotels, and flashy welcome banners, draining the town's finances in the process. Records show some staggering amounts, like $226,000 spent on a Las Vegas trip and over $133,000 on a high-end hotel in New York City, all billed to the taxpayers. Critics have slammed her approach to governance as reckless, calling her spending tone-deaf, especially in a town where public services like police and fire departments remain underfunded. Federal investigators have taken a deep dive into Henyard's finances, combing through documents related to payroll reimbursements, credit card usage, and employment records. Among the more startling allegations is a claim that Henyard's administration improperly paid nearly $900,000 to a local prosecutor, raising suspicions of favoritism, fraud, or worse. Adding to the chaos is her former ally, Keith Freeman, a key figure now implicated in his own web of corruption, including bankruptcy fraud. Once one of Henyard's most loyal supporters, Freeman now faces his own legal battles, and rumors are swirling that he may be cooperating with federal authorities in their investigation against the relationship between Freeman and Henyard, once politically unshakable, has shattered under the weight of mutual accusations and growing scrutiny. Freeman has claimed that Henyard attempted to fire him in an effort to silence his testimony, but the township board refused to follow her lead, further fracturing her hold on power. However, this situation isn't just about financial misconduct. It's also about the social and political fallout in Dalton. Henyard's decisions have divided the community, with trustees, many of whom are black like Henyard, openly opposing her actions. They rejected her claims that criticism of her is rooted in racial bias, accusing her instead of mismanagement and corruption that transcends race. They point to the worsening fiscal health of Dalton and an increasingly dysfunctional administration. Meanwhile, Henyard has turned to emotional appeals, portraying herself as a leader under attack, invoking spirituality, and framing herself as a divinely chosen figure fighting against the forces of evil. Unfortunately, this tactic has done little to salvage her reputation. Behind closed doors, her erratic governance and public conflicts have painted a picture of chaos rather than strategic leadership. Public frustration has grown, with residents demanding accountability for the lack of transparency, missed board meetings, and spiraling debt that they fear could take generations to resolve. Federal prosecutors have now expanded their investigation, looking into members of Henyard's inner circle, including her deputy police chief and individuals linked to her now-defunct burger business. This deepening web of allegations suggests that this is more than just a case of mismanagement. It's a multi-layered scandal implicating a network of corruption and the misuse of power and funds. As for Henyard, her response to the mounting accusations has been erratic at best. She has denied all allegations, calling them politically and racially motivated attacks, even as damning evidence continues to surface. Leaked videos, documents, and growing witness testimonies are painting a picture of a leader who is losing control, both politically and personally. Despite Henyard's protest of innocence, the court of public opinion seems increasingly convinced that her actions have jeopardized not just her position, but the very future of Dalton. From financial mismanagement to the erosion of public trust, the once promising vision of her leadership now lies in tatters. Federal investigators are determined to follow the trail of evidence, and with more officials willing to speak out, it seems Henyard's days in power may be numbered as this small town's drama takes on national proportions. It's clear that the true cost is being felt by the residents of Dalton.
Is the reason why you guys are not paying whatever that's going to be?
What was it for?
It was for church.
Picture this: a tense, cramped meeting room thick with resentment and seething rage. At the center of it all is Mayor Tiffany Henyard, a polarizing figure known for her bold fashion choices and her claim to be the most powerful woman on Chicago's South Side. But on this explosive day, her self-styled reign is under fire as she faces down her board of trustees. Emotions flare and Henyard, visibly furious and unrelenting, lashes out at the trustees. "Stop causing chaos," she demands, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "You don't stand for me, and I want you to step down." It's a startling display of frustration and defiance from a leader under siege, whose once unshakable grip on her village now seems to be slipping. But what's behind the uproar, and why is Henyard so rattled? The confrontation stems from a push for financial transparency that the embattled mayor has fought tooth and nail to resist. Recently, the Board of Trustees passed a motion demanding Dalton's financial dealings be brought into the light, calling for greater accountability and open access to financial documents, a move Henyard met with disdain and defiance. Instead of complying with the board's mandate, the mayor swiftly and unilaterally overruled the decision, further intensifying the animosity in an already fractured government. The clash reached fever pitch during the heated meeting as trustees called out Henyard's refusal to embrace financial reform. Meanwhile, Henyard doubled down, turning the tables and framing the board as antagonists bent on undermining her leadership and fueling chaos in the village. Amid her fiery declarations, she introduced a motion to terminate Keith Freeman, a controversial figure who had once been a key ally in her administration. Freeman had long been a trusted confidant, but cracks in their alliance began to show when he became embroiled in allegations of corruption and bankruptcy fraud. He was accused of hiding income and assets in financial reports, and speculation surged that Freeman may have flipped, possibly cooperating with federal investigators now circling Henyard's administration. Fear and fury over Freeman's alleged betrayal may explain Henyard's relentless push to sever ties with him, even as members of the Board of Trustees resisted her motion to oust him. At the heart of the standoff is Dalton's fractured government, riddled with tension and dysfunction. Henyard's refusal to comply with the board's push for transparency highlights the contentious nature of her leadership, an overwhelming need to maintain control and deflect scrutiny. Despite the mounting allegations against her administration for Henyard, this isn't just about Freeman. It's a battle to preserve the narrative of power she's worked tirelessly to construct. Her dominance, once unquestioned, is now under threat as trustees demand accountability. Community members grow increasingly vocal about their dissatisfaction, and federal investigators dig deeper into allegations of financial mismanagement. Rumors of her eventual downfall continue to swirl. Despite the mounting pressure, Henyard shows no intention of backing down. Throughout the fiery exchange, her disdain for opposition is palpable as she accuses the trustees of plotting against her. She frames herself as a misunderstood figure, fighting tirelessly for her village against relentless attacks from both within and beyond. She casts herself as a martyr for the people, standing firm against detractors who, in her view, would rather undermine progress than see her succeed. However, her rhetoric and refusal to compromise continue to alienate her colleagues and constituents, adding to the perception that her administration is spiraling out of control. Henyard's leadership has become synonymous with lavish spending, accusations of misuse of power, and controversies that overshadow any potential policy achievements. The board's insistence on opening the financial documents only intensifies existing suspicions about unchecked spending, travel expenses, and unaccounted funds tied to her administration. Critics argue that Henyard's opposition to transparency only reinforces the belief that her governance prioritizes personal gain over the public good. The community watches closely, aware of the high stakes. The meeting concludes without resolution, leaving trustees and Henyard at an impasse. Dalton's government remains mired in dysfunction, and residents are left uncertain about what lies ahead. Yet one thing is clear. Tiffany Henyard, once renowned for her boldness and charisma, now stands precariously on the edge of a precipice. Her once solid empire is undermined by allegations, strained alliances, and her defiance in the face of growing dissent. Whether this marks the beginning of the end for Henyard's political career or a calculated move in her game of survival remains to be seen. But one undeniable truth emerges. The battle for Dalton's future is far from over.
And that is the finding of an investigation of village finances and the spending habits of beleaguered.
But wait. This narrative takes an even more dramatic turn with a shocking twist involving L.S. Lacey Dalton, the chief of police and one of Tiffany Henyard's closest allies. If you thought the drama couldn't get any more intense, think again, because Lacey's involvement adds an entirely new layer of turmoil to this already explosive saga. Lacey, once a trusted figure in Henyard's administration, now finds himself embroiled in a serious scandal, facing multiple federal charges that include bankruptcy fraud, making false statements and committing perjury. This is no small infraction. The allegations paint a damning picture of criminal conduct at the highest levels of Henyard's inner circle according to the federal indictment. Lacey went to great lengths to conceal assets, fabricate details, and lie under oath, all in a calculated effort to avoid paying a $440,000 lawsuit settlement. The implications of these charges are devastating, not just for Lacey, but also for Henyard's already scandal-plagued administration. If convicted, Lacey faces a potential sentence of up to 45 years in prison, a prospect that sends shockwaves through Dalton and fuels speculation that Henyard's regime is rapidly unraveling under the weight of its controversies. Critics argue that Lacey's legal troubles are symptomatic of a larger issue within Henyard's leadership, where transparency and accountability often seem like distant priorities. Many are now questioning how a high-ranking figure like Lacey was able to remain in his position while allegedly engaging in such serious misconduct. These revelations add yet another layer of complexity to an administration already besieged by accusations of corruption, financial mismanagement, and federal investigations for Henyard. Lacey's indictment represents a seismic blow to her embattled rule. Once seen as a loyal ally and enforcer within her administration, Lacey's fall from grace signals a deeper erosion of Henyard's grip on power. Rumors are swirling that Lacey may cooperate with federal investigators in exchange for leniency, a possibility that could have devastating consequences for Henyard if it leads to further exposure of wrongdoing within her administration. This twist has left residents and political observers alike wondering if Lacey's indictment is just the beginning of a larger unraveling of Henyard's inner circle. Meanwhile, Henyard's response to Lacey's charges has been notably muted, further fueling speculation about the state of her leadership and her ability to manage the growing crisis surrounding her. Some insiders suggest that Henyard's silence on the matter may be a calculated move to distance herself from Lacey as the fallout from his indictment continues to unfold. Others see it as a sign that Henyard is running out of options, unable to mount an effective defense against the tidal wave of scandals engulfing her administration. The allegations against Lacey have also reignited calls for accountability and transparency in Dalton's governance. Critics point to this latest scandal as another example of the unchecked power and questionable decision-making that have come to define Henyard's tenure as mayor. Residents are growing increasingly vocal in their demands for change, frustrated by an administration that seems more focused on preserving its own power than addressing the needs of the community. As Lacey's legal battles unfold, they are likely to bring even more scrutiny to Henyard and her administration, raising questions about who else might be implicated in the misconduct and whether the federal investigations will expand to include other key figures within her regime. The mounting pressure on Henyard is impossible to ignore, and it's becoming increasingly clear that her hold on power is slipping as the scandals surrounding her and her allies continue to pile up for the residents of Dalton. Lacey's indictment feels like the tipping point in a saga already defined by chaos and controversy. It serves as a painful reminder of the high cost of corruption and the urgent need for reform in their local government. As the drama unfolds, one thing is certain. The stakes have never been higher for Henyard and her embattled administration. Whether Lacey's downfall will prove to be the final nail in the coffin for Henyard's political career or merely another chapter in this seemingly endless saga of scandal and intrigue remains to be seen. But as federal investigators continue their work and the court cases play out, the residents of Dalton and observers beyond will be watching closely, awaiting answers, and hoping for a resolution to the turmoil that has gripped their town.
Guilty of all 9 counts. I believe he's cooperating.
What makes the situation such a colossal issue is that Lacey isn't just any police chief. He has been one of Tiffany Henyard's most devoted and loyal foot soldiers, allegedly carrying out her questionable deeds for years. The main concern reverberating throughout Dalton is whether Lacey, now facing serious federal charges, will flip on Henyard to save himself, a move that could deliver the final devastating blow to the self-proclaimed super mayor. This indictment has shaken not only Dalton but also Henyard's administration, raising serious questions about the integrity of those in her inner circle and threatening to expose a broader web of alleged corruption. Lacey, accused of perjury and bankruptcy fraud, is now under immense legal pressure. These charges, serious on their own, point to something potentially far more sinister. This isn't just about one man attempting to avoid paying a $440,000 lawsuit settlement. It represents the potential unraveling of a system Henyard is alleged to have manipulated for personal and political gain. If Lacey, backed into a corner by federal prosecutors, chooses to cooperate, he could expose years of alleged misconduct within Henyard's administration, from the purported extortion of local businesses to claims of transforming the Dalton Police Department into her personal security force. To understand the stakes, it's crucial to examine what this indictment truly signifies. Perjury and bankruptcy fraud aren't minor infractions. They're severe crimes that underscore a fundamental lack of trustworthiness and moral character. But in Lacey's case, these charges don't stand in isolation. They appear to form part of a larger pattern of behavior within a deeply dysfunctional administration. The implications are staggering. Henyard, who has consistently surrounded herself with fiercely loyal allies like Lacey, may have unwittingly placed herself in peril. If those same allies turn against her under legal pressure, federal prosecutors thrive on using smaller fish to catch bigger ones. And if Lacey chooses to cooperate, his testimony could shine a light on the shadowy dealings that have plagued Dalton during Henyard's tenure. This could range from backroom deals and financial mismanagement to more serious allegations, like abusing the power of the police force for personal protection or silencing critics for years. Critics have long argued that Henyard has maintained her grip on Dalton by fostering a culture of loyalty among her closest allies, often at the expense of ethics and transparency. As chief of police, Lacey allegedly played a pivotal role in this dynamic, carrying out directives that raised eyebrows both in the community and beyond. Allegations have included everything from selective law enforcement to favoring businesses that align with Henyard's political interests while pressuring those who resist her influence if these accusations hold any truth. The fallout from Lacey's potential cooperation with federal investigators could be monumental, laying bare a culture of corruption that has seeped into the very fabric of Dalton's governance. The indictment is not merely a challenge to Lacey, it's an existential threat to the legitimacy of Henyard's administration. Federal prosecutors are known for meticulously building cases from the ground up, often using testimony and evidence from insiders. Lacey's deep entanglement in Henyard's operations, whether in the form of alleged financial malfeasance or questionable law enforcement tactics, makes him a prime candidate for cooperation, and the stakes couldn't be higher if Lacey reveals incriminating details about Henyard's alleged misuse of power or corruption. It could trigger an avalanche of legal and political repercussions for the mayor, potentially culminating in what some are already speculating could be the end of her controversial career. What makes Lacey's potential flip even more perilous for Henyard is that he is uniquely positioned to provide a comprehensive picture of her administration's inner workings. He would have first-hand knowledge of operations and decisions that have long been the subject of public scrutiny. If he indeed chooses to strike a deal with prosecutors, it could validate years of rumors and allegations, delivering a critical blow to Henyard's public image and political viability. The indictment has already rattled Dalton, where residents are now questioning just how deep the alleged corruption runs and whether the town's leadership can recover from these seismic revelations. For Henyard, Lacey's indictment represents more than just a potential legal problem. It's a symbol of the growing cracks in her once impenetrable facade of authority. Known for her bold proclamations and a knack for deflecting criticism, Henyard may soon find that her ability to control the narrative is slipping away. As more details emerge and the pressure mounts on Lacey to cooperate, the specter of an outright collapse of her administration looms large.
That's what the trustees I talked to are calling this. They say the news took them by surprise, and now they're talking to legal counsel.
The trustees I've spoken with are calling the current situation a complete shock. The news hit them hard, and now they're consulting legal counsel as the drama continues to unfold. Under Tiffany Henyard's contentious leadership, the village of Dalton has been mired in a series of troubling allegations, painting a stark picture of power abuse and financial irresponsibility. One of the most alarming issues is Henyard's alleged misuse of the Dalton Police Department, which, under her direction, has reportedly become a private army for political intimidation. Allegedly, officers were diverted from their core duties, such as patrolling streets and addressing crime, to provide personal security for the mayor. Former police chief Robert Collins was vocal about this, criticizing the overwhelming demands on his officers to chauffeur Henyard rather than focus on law enforcement. Collins bluntly stated that the department was on the verge of collapse, calling it a gross misuse of public resources and demanding accountability for the misplaced priorities. But the abuse of power doesn't stop there. Henyard's financial mismanagement has raised alarm bells across Dalton. She stands accused of treating taxpayer funds like her personal piggy bank. Reports suggest she charged extravagant expenses to village credit cards, including lavish vacations, a private ice skating rink, and even a jaw-dropping one-day Amazon spree totaling $33,000. Critics have slammed these expenditures as egregious, portraying Henyard as a leader who prioritizes luxury over the well-being of her community. Additionally, allegations of pay-to-play practices have surfaced, claiming local businesses were coerced into donating to Henyard's personal charity in exchange for the ability to stay operational. These accusations paint a damning picture of an administration driven by self-interest, mismanagement, and a disregard for Dalton's welfare. The financial situation in Dalton has spiraled into crisis. The village's fiscal health has plummeted from a surplus of $561 million in April 2022 to a staggering $365 million deficit by May 2024, a shocking $926 million shift in just 2 years. This rapid and dramatic decline has prompted critical questions. Where did all the money go? How could this happen under Henyard's watch? A special investigator was brought in to examine Dalton's finances, uncovering troubling revelations about unchecked spending and fiscal irresponsibility. Residents are now demanding accountability from the mayor, and the community is growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of transparency and oversight, as if these scandals weren't enough. Henyard now faces the growing threat of federal scrutiny. Her close ally, Police Chief Lacey, was recently indicted on charges of bankruptcy fraud, perjury, and making false statements. Federal investigators are zeroing in on Henyard's administration and the allegations against Lacey, concealing assets to avoid a $440,000 lawsuit settlement, could potentially land him in prison for up to 45 years. This indictment, however, goes beyond Lacey as an individual. It symbolizes the deeper decay within Henyard's leadership. Once a loyalist and enforcer of Henyard's directives, Lacey is now under immense pressure to cooperate with federal investigators. If he flips, his insider knowledge could be the key to exposing everything from alleged extortion of local businesses to claims that Henyard transformed the Dalton Police Department into her personal security force. Such testimony could lay the foundation for a full-scale federal probe into Henyard's conduct. The federal spotlight isn't just on Lacey. Henyard's administration is also under siege from investigators scrutinizing employment records, financial statements, and expenditure documents. Sources close to the investigation suggest that several of Henyard's inner circle members, feeling the heat of the ongoing probes, are already cooperating with authorities in an attempt to save themselves from potential indictments. Among those believed to be potentially turning on Henyard is former top aide Keith Freeman, who faces his own allegations of bankruptcy fraud. Rumors are circulating that Freeman may be working with trustees investigating Henyard's financial practices. If Freeman and others provide damaging evidence, it could lead to further revelations that weaken Henyard's already fragile hold on power, with investigations mounting and more potential turncoats emerging. Henyard's administration seems to be spiraling deeper into scandal. The community of Dalton is left grappling with the consequences of a leadership marked by financial mismanagement, alleged abuse of power, and an administration under intense federal scrutiny. Whether Henyard can weather the storm or whether these scandals will mark the end of her controversial political career remains to be seen. But the stakes have never been higher.
One-day purchase of over $40,000 to Amazon. And
Dalton's political landscape is spiraling into chaos as Mayor Tiffany Henyard is embroiled in a series of scandals that threaten to dismantle her leadership. Accusations of financial mismanagement, abuse of power, and personal controversies have left her administration on the brink of collapse. The most alarming of these revelations came from an analysis led by former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, which exposed egregious misuse of taxpayer funds. This included extravagant purchases from stores like Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair, along with the infamous Amazon spree, where $33,000 was spent in just one day. To make matters worse, it was uncovered that over $6 million in checks were issued but never sent to vendors, leaving Dalton with a massive mountain of unpaid bills. The village now faces a dire financial crisis that it simply cannot afford to pay off instead of taking responsibility. Henyard has dismissed these findings, calling them part of a politically motivated smear campaign orchestrated by her rivals. However, her defense has done little to calm the growing discontent among both the community and her administration. In a move that has sparked outrage, Henyard reinstated her discredited Deputy Police Chief Lacey, despite facing federal charges including perjury, bankruptcy fraud, and making false statements. Lacey could face up to 50 years in prison if convicted, and his return to the position has only fueled speculation that Henyard may be trying to signal loyalty to her inner circle. But many argue that if Lacy chooses to cooperate with federal investigators, his allegiance to Henyard could quickly dissolve, leaving her political future in jeopardy. With federal authorities actively pursuing their investigation, Lacy's potential cooperation could unravel more secrets about the administration's alleged corruption. Henyard's response to these mounting scandals has been anything but conciliatory. When the Board of Trustees pushed for accountability and transparency regarding taxpayer funds, Henyard swiftly dismissed their resolution, further escalating tensions within her administration. In a dramatic turn of events, four trustees walked out of a recent board meeting in protest, feeling betrayed by Henyard's refusal to address concerns about financial mismanagement. This meeting only highlighted the public's frustration, as one resident openly called Henyard the worst mayor in America, reflecting the growing distrust among Dalton citizens. Compounding these issues, Henyard is now facing a harassment and retaliation lawsuit filed by a former employee who claims wrongful termination after reporting an assault during a business trip. Though Henyard denies the allegations, the lawsuit adds another layer of suspicion surrounding her judgment and leadership amidst the storm. Henyard's strategy seems to be one of evasion rather than confrontation. Despite repeated calls for answers following Lightfoot's damning financial report, she has avoided both media attention and public scrutiny. She has declined interviews, failed to appear at Village Hall meetings, and refused to respond to requests for comment, leading to speculation that she may be attempting to disappear from public view. However, with the FBI investigation closing in, disappearing may no longer be an option. The stakes are rising as federal subpoenas are reportedly targeting employment records, financial statements, and related documents that could expose the full extent of Dalton's financial mismanagement under Henyard's leadership. Investigators are expanding their reach, and insiders suggest that several of Henyard's former allies are already cooperating with authorities, further jeopardizing her position locally. Residents are becoming more vocal in their demands for accountability. Calls for Henyard's resignation are growing louder as more allegations emerge about her handling of public funds and the alleged pay-to-play tactics used to coerce businesses into contributing to her personal charity in exchange for the ability to remain operational. These allegations have only deepened the portrait of a leader seemingly more interested in personal gain than addressing the pressing issues facing her community. The financial turmoil in Dalton remains a central issue. Once boasting a $561 million surplus in 2022, the village now faces a staggering $365 million deficit, marking a dramatic $926 million swing in just 2 years. With financial mismanagement at the forefront, Henyard's leadership is under fire, and the residents of Dalton are left grappling with the fallout from her controversial reign as the investigation continues and more details emerge. The pressure on Henyard mounts, and the future of her political career grows increasingly uncertain. For Dalton, the cost of corruption and poor leadership is becoming all too real.